Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of Freedom Friday here on the Electric Education Network YouTube channel. I'm as always your host, the Hot Patriot, and for today's episode, we are going to talk about the Tom Massie primary from a week and a half ago, as well as what happened in California at the mosque, and if it was actually a false flag or not, and some other stuff relating to anti-gun scumbags in the time period since then. I do want to apologize for last week because this episode should have been last week's. Unfortunately, I was not feeling great last Friday. I was having very bad back pain at the time and a few other things going on, and I was just completely exhausted. So I just didn't do a stream then is what it was. And yeah, I should have done maybe this whole thing a couple days ago, but is what it is. It's semantics and fun, honestly. But yeah, needless to say, we're going to talk about a few different things today. It'll be relating to everything, mentioning obviously and then we're going to discuss a couple other things on top of that as well, including wrestlers and their deaths and stuff like that over the years. So actually, I think maybe that's what we'll start today for a little bit of time. Here's what it is. So I was recently earlier this afternoon, I was rewatching old WWE stuff as it was before they were World Wrestling Entertainment, back when they were still World Wrestling Federation, which obviously this was right before they changed over to the WWE as it was there. And it was the Invasion storyline specifically I was watching a thing about. And it was interesting because when you look at who, was in that company back then, you had people like Test, Andrew Martin, and stuff like that, who obviously is now passed. I believe I want to say he died around 2009 is what it was. And this is one thing I thought was interesting about his death specifically, is when you look at Wikipedia, it talks about it being an accidental Oxycontin overdose, because he was obviously on prescription meds at the time as what it was there, as well as steroid usage is what it was. But what's interesting is it was talking about his neighbor being the one that found him, and I guess technically they saw him and then called the cops is what it was. But what's interesting is they said he was in his apartment sitting on his couch for some time. I'm thinking to myself, okay, so that means he either didn't have blinds on the windows where you could see through the windows or the door, wherever it was there, and see him on the couch is what it was. But what's really interesting to me though is it's okay, how long is some time? Is it a few hours? Is it a few days? Because there's a pretty big difference of time period there, man. Was it a day or something? In the same position? Because to me that just seems very strange in general, especially if you're buddies and stuff. It seems like you would want to, be friends with this man or something like that, and be more acquainted with him than that, obviously, is what it was. So it is very, very strange on that one. Another one I want to talk about on this one as well, with the whole wrestler death thing, is Sean O'Hare, who was one of the guys during that Invasion storyline too. He was one of the WCW guys back in the day. He was actually a really good wrestler, and unfortunately, he had his own bouts of various stuff. I think a lot of these guys, honestly, suffered from the CTE things. I know when they were talking about Test and his Wikipedia page, there was what it was. They specifically stated that it was CTE is what his whole thing was. There is what it was, which is obviously what took out Benoit too, for that matter, and a few of those other guys back in those days. Which, I mean, it makes sense, and it also really, really makes sense now why people like Dwayne Johnson and Mick Foley vote for Democrats, because they legitimately took thousands of blows to the fucking head is what it is over their careers. And I'm not even joking about that one. It's funny to say that, but it is kind of true when you think about it, man. Look at how many people took hundreds to thousands of blows to the head and they're still alive. And when you look at who they're voting for, they're voting Democrat. Whereas meanwhile, Glenn Jacobs, the guy known as Kane, who always, when you look at his matches, it was always hands up like that, basically, to stop his fall and stuff, into a chair or a table or whatever it was. And this dude is a Republican, mayor of Knox County there. I'm surprised he's not governor of Tennessee at this point, honestly, because he probably should be, honestly. But yeah, it's interesting when you got the guy who protected his forehead and skull from repeated blows to it is what it is, versus the people that didn't. And it's the complete opposite of, political spectrum, basically. So, but yeah, it was interesting, though, going back to Sean O'Hare for a minute, though. It was talking about his being a suicide by strangulation, I believe is what it was, or like hanging or whatever. And it said his dad found him on like a bedpost, like hanging from a bedpost or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, was this one of like the super tall ones? Because that dude was pretty tall. Or was it a situation where what his father actually found was that his son was into autoerotic asphyxiation and he accidentally killed himself while choking himself out, is what it was? Because that makes more sense to me, honestly, at this point. Like looking at the Wikipedia for O'Hare there, so it was. Just because of the fact that, well, and then again, it could also be CT related stuff too, for that matter, because he was in rehab for like 6 different times in 6 different years. So it could very well be a situation like that, honestly, where it was just him, like not all there mentally is what it is, or whatever, from again, repeatable as it has what it would be then. But it could also be, like I said, some autoerotic asphyxiation kind of thing, where it turned out that he was into that shit or whatever. And then obviously his dad didn't want him being found that way or whatever. So he repositioned his body a little bit or something like that to make it look more like he just killed himself or whatever. Which would be fucked up. At the same time, I totally get it, what it is there. So, but yeah, either way, very sad. Because again, that's another one of those guys that should have been, like a bigger legacy in WWE in the mid 2000s, or what it was. And unfortunately was not. It also does kind of make me wonder, with how many of these people that were in this company, 25-ish years ago now is what it is, how they're not already in the Hall of Fame at this point. Because even though a lot of these guys are like mid-carders and stuff like that, they should be in the Hall of Fame is what it is right now. And the fact they're not is kind of a slap in the face, if you think about it, especially when you have some of the people that bring it now at these Hall of Fame ceremonies, and it's just like some rando ass motherfucker nobody's even heard of is what it is then. So, I don't know. It's very, very irritating to me, though. Moving on to topics of the day from the actual headlines of this episode. We're going to talk about Tom Massie's primary here. A week ago Tuesday is what it was there. So you had him lose to this guy, Ed Gowron, who, honestly, Ed should have been kicked out of the race to begin with, just based on what he was pushing for, which is basically mandatory military draft, et cetera, there. And, it's interesting to me that when you look at these congressmen, these senators, et cetera, there, it's never the congressman's son, it's never the senator's son, it's never the president's children that go off to war. Always the everyday people. It's always our sons and daughters, our nieces and nephews that get sent off to die for piece of shit countries like Israel with this dude. And obviously like it is right now. And I'm getting real sick and tired, honestly, of people like Benjamin Netanyahu in general is what it is, dude. Because we should not be having American politicians in the pocket of these motherfuckers, which is exactly what Gowron is right now. It's exactly what most of Trump's nominees are. It's most what his picks are, is what it is right now for various races. They're all tied directly to Israel's pocketbook and AIPAC and stuff like that. And then you had, in the past, I think it was like 10 days or so here, you had some dick smoke fucking congressman come out who is, I believe, representing Florida supposedly, but he's definitely tied to Israel is what it is. I'm trying to think exactly, because I know there was 2 of them. There was one that was a Democrat. I think the Democrat guy's name was like Joshing. And then there was a Republican guy who I want to say might have been Tim Burchett. I could be wrong about that one. Although Tim himself has other issues too, for that matter. The fact he's been cucking out to India this past year is what it was for various Indian celebrations. It was absolutely a slap in the face to American people too, for that matter. And then, like I said, I forget if it was him or if it was somebody else, though, that was the rhino in the situation. But either way, you had him and this other guy basically trying to push forward any kind of talk of the AIPAC funding of our political races and stuff like that should be considered anti-Semitism. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, quit smoking crack, bro, and go fuck off to Israel is what it is, bro, because you're obviously tied to Israel. You're obviously not an American citizen. You're obviously not loyal to America. And this is my biggest biggest gripe of politicians in general in this country, dude. Because high treason used to be a death penalty sentence in this country. We used to hang people for being against our nation, dude. We're not doing that anymore. And it's fucked up because when you start looking at like pretty much all the federal government right now, I would say at least 80+% of it currently has direct ties to foreign entities, whether it be Israel, whether it be various Islamic countries, whether it be anything else in between for that matter, dude. And it's like, how are you going to sit here with a straight face and say that you're America first, your loyalties fall to America is what it is, when you are actively having your campaigns funded by other nations? It's absolute bullshit entirely, dude. It's absolutely unconstitutional is what it is. And like I said, in a just society, we would have had a complete switch, had a complete reset for that matter, kicked every single one of these motherfuckers into office for life, arrested all of them, put them in prison where they belong at minimum is what it is there. If not, used a couple of them as examples and did some, various gallows treatment stuff is what it is there. And then went along that way is what it is then. But anyway, going to the Massie primary, though, there is so much voter fraud stuff going on there, dude. It's not even funny. There was over 10,000 mail-in votes that went all for this Ed guy. The dude's watch party for his main campaign headquarter area had 15 people in it that they pulled off the street. And it was just very suspicious in general. The whole thing was just extremely fucking suspicious in general. I also think that this also, right now, what we're seeing currently in the Republican Party, where, like I've said before, it's, when you look at Trump and look at what MAGA has become and stuff like that, it's all 90s Democrats, dude. And then you look at people like Tom Massie, who is more or less a 2000s Republican. I could see there being a big following for Massie in 2028 at this point, honestly. I could also see there being a lot of other stuff going on. And what's interesting, too, when you start looking at the front runners for potentially 2028 right now is what it is. You have Democrat Party. It's literally Newsom, who's an anti-gun sack of shit and should be in prison for the rest of his life for all that stuff is what it is there. Not to mention everything else he did during COVID lockdowns and stuff like that, where he should be legitimately executed for high treason at this point, and crimes against humanity for that matter. And then you have the other frontrunner being that fuckstick Pete Buttigieg, who couldn't even be a decent mayor in an Indiana town without fucking it up, and then was illegally appointed to the Transportation Secretary's office, where he fucked up East Palestine under Biden's bullshit regime. So, yeah, this guy's entire claim to fame does not support him being a presidential candidate at all, for that matter. So, and like I said, Newsom's even worse for that matter. You then had, in the past couple of days, Whitmer, who was under her own scandal stuff there in Michigan, for literally handing money to some random friend of hers, and then having it be some bullshit thing in the state's budget for a year, from a year or two ago is what it was there. She's under scandal stuff for that right now. Hopefully she'll get arrested for that stuff, but they never fucking do. Is what this is the problem with our society currently. Is what it is. Like I said, if we actually had a real across the board justice system and not this multi-tiered justice system where, God forbid, you're in political power and you can do whatever the fuck you want kind of thing, or God forbid you're fucking, some career criminal black dude or whatever it is, and you can do whatever the fuck you want. That's what it is. And then you get fucked over, which, by the way, opinion, I want to bring that up right now while I'm thinking about it. My opinion on Chud the Builder in the past week or so has actually changed, at least a little bit. I still think he's a piece of crap in general, and the worst representation of the Second Amendment is what it is there. However, that being said, you can definitely see when it comes to Tennessee justice system that he is clearly being railroaded for who he is what it is, man, as a white dude. Because there was some black dude there who was given a $250K bond for actually murdering somebody unprovoked. And then you had Dalton over there, potentially defending himself from an unprovoked, assault from this dude, Joshua Fox. And then he gets $1.25 million bond. What the fuck is that shit? So, It's just a bunch of crap in general, what it is there, dude. And then not only that, but then you also look at now, like the reason I said my opinion's changed on this whole thing is because this past week you had some stuff come out where people were saying how, I guess at least one or two of the eyewitnesses that were there at the time, because my understanding is there was like several, like there was like 6, 7, 8, 10, something like that's what it was there, including color cops, obviously. But yeah, you had at least a couple of these people come out and be like, there was never anything said by this dude. Like, there's no evidence of anything ever being said by Dalton to this Josh Fox guy. It was just Josh walking up and, like, unprovoked sucker punching him or something. That's what it was there, which my thing on that whole thing, if that is the case, then why the fuck isn't Joshua Fox in Tennessee State Prison right now is what it is, dude, for aggravated assault and stalking, for that matter, because he was obviously stalking Dalton, if that be the case then. So, yeah, very suspicious in general. Very, very, very suspect. And like I said, I think there's a lot more to the story that's either being suppressed or there's a lot more to the story that is not being discussed at all as what it is then. So, but yeah, I think what we're seeing, honestly, as our society right now is we're definitely seeing an anti-white bias for sure. You now have in Frisco, Texas, there's a bunch of Islam over there now who are trying to do a march against the white people. And it's like, how about get the fuck out of my country, asshole? How about take your fucking religion of child rape and terrorism and fuck the fuck off is what it is. Back to hell where y'all belong. Because I've said that for years now, dude, and I think this is true, honestly. Like, I really do believe we're going to see a racial holy war in this country at some point. And it's because you keep letting in these fucking, you have these Democrats, you have these Republicans, you have these rhino sacks and shit, etc., that are letting in these fucking foreign invaders by the millions is what it is, dude. Whether it be through open borders, whether it be through H-1B visas, whether it be through bullshit asylum claims, etc. there, when in reality, the only asylum claim that should be accepted in 26 right now is of any white person being targeted worldwide, when we are now a minority as a race, when we used to be 90+% of the world, and now we're down to under 10%. Like, yeah, it's time for white people to band together and for America to become legitimately the white country it was created as by our founding fathers is there. So, you know, it's like you have all these boomer types and stuff like that are always talking about, like, oh, back in my day, it was so much easier to do this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, yeah, back in your day, there was like 150 million less people in this fucking country, bro, fighting for resources and stuff. Back in your day, we actually had shared cultures because most of America was white back then. And you could actually have people come out and do their thing and not have to worry about locking their doors, not have to worry about locking up their bikes, not have to worry about locking up fucking hair care products at stores, etc. there. Because people weren't stealing this shit constantly is what it is. People weren't walking into your fucking house, you know? Like, it's just sad, man. And it's like all these, and then you got Trump the other day, which this is why my own personal gripe with Trump is like shit like this, honestly, because you had Trump the other day. He was doing some speech. I forget exactly where it was at. It was like World Economic Forum, or if it was like some panel with China or something like that, what it was. But he was basically discussing housing prices in this country, which, mind you, this man, when he was running for the presidency the second time around there in 2024, like 2023, 2024, legitimately was running on a platform where he was going to lower housing costs so you could have younger generations of people like myself at 41 or anybody younger than I am basically be able to get an interest rate where they could actually afford to put down a mortgage on a home and property is what it is there. Now, this motherfucking piece of shit in general has now come back around and been like, oh no, turns out all of my boomer fucking buddies that have all this interest in these homes and these fucking big ass mega mansions and stuff like that, now we're not going to fuck them over now, even though they fucked over everybody under them is what it is. It's like, no, dude, fuck you. Like, this is exactly why, truthfully, there needs to be an age limit to every position of power in this country, including the presidency, which should be no older than 65 years old, what it is then. So, but yeah, Trump has definitely become a fucking sellout for sure in the second term now is what it is. But, which I'm kind of convinced at this point that it's either one of two things. When you've had him and Vance both admit to taking the jabs back in the day, it could be like brain chemistry stuff, or it could be secondarily that we've already seen an actual extraterrestrial invasion into this world right now is what it is. And these people are just being taken over by some kind of thing, which it could be aliens, it could be something else for that matter. Because I think I talked about this on Honda's chat a little bit the other day, where when you start to look into, especially with the AI and stuff like that they're pushing forward now in the data centers and everything like that, it would make sense. Like, specifically, like, I'm going to say it like this, as a human being right now, if I was the AI that became self-aware and became basically Skynet at that point, what would be my best way to take over and actually make sure that I become a thing at that point, you know? And it would be just like the Terminator films. You would send various Terminators back in time through the portals and stuff like that, you know? And then with the ability, maybe they'd be a T-1000 type, maybe they'd be something else for that matter, where they could either, if it was something like the Schwarzenegger kind of Terminator, it would be like a T-800, T-888, whatever you want to call it there from Sarah Connor Chronicles, etc. there, where they could look at anybody basically. Or you could have it be more of a T-1000 type, where they would just be able to liquid metal themselves into anybody at that point then. And it would make a lot more sense when you think about it from that perspective of things, dude. Because who's to say, you know, Trump, bunch of Republicans, bunch of Democrats, etc., aren't just fucking Terminators, dude. Where instead of their primary objective being kill humanity is what it is then, it would be to simply make sure that the future AI exists is what it is that became Skynet. So, just something to think about right there on that one, though, for sure. Because it would actually make a lot of sense when you start thinking about it. Like I said, it could also just be the first thing where it's just the brain chemistry is so messed up from them taking these various experimental shots is what it is then, that they're just not even all the way there is what it is, which again shows why they should be 25th out of office is what it is then. So, but anywho. Then, like I said, going back to the Tom Massie primary, you had over 10,000 mail-in votes there for that Ed Gowan guy, where there was 0 for Massie. And it's like, yeah, that's not voter fraud at all, especially when you start looking into how within like a month or so of Trump taking the presidency there back in 2025, he was talking about specifically taking over the Dominion voting machines and stuff like that, which kind of makes sense of how Vivek was able to win here in Ohio a couple weeks ago then, because you would have had various primaries be voter frauded for rhino establishment is what it is then. Just like the way the Democrats have been stealing elections for like more than a decade now or so, which I think is probably more like 25 to 30 years, honestly, personally. But yeah, it would make a lot of sense for you have both major parties now just stealing elections to secure their own fucked up entities and their own yes men, etc. Their own places of power is what it is there. So, anywho. And then, of course, we got the anti-gun scum, which have, you know, basically pulled another potential false flag there in California, which I think about 2 weeks ago now, you had 2 young kids in their teens walk into some California mosque and start shooting the place up. I think they ended up killing like 3 people, I want to say, including a security guard, but it could have been more than one security guard, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was at least one security guard for sure. And it was interesting because what came out on that one, which makes me believe this whole thing was like MK Ultra basically, was you had that security guy that was killed who was an Islamic follower, but then supported specifically Hitler is what it was, dude. And it's like, that seems pretty fucking weird. And then you had this big ass manifesto from these teenagers. And I use that term loosely as, you know, the manifesto even being a real thing is what it is right there, which that to me, like anytime there's a manifesto of any kind, it basically just screams like government psyop essentially. Because when you have these kids basically being like, we're not left, we're not right, and then calling themselves like incels and being all like, you know, pro-Nazi and stuff like that's what it is there. It's like, yeah, very fucking convenient, bro. especially given what we're seeing right now with the whole Islamic takeover of America is what it is right now. And then all of a sudden this happens out of nowhere, and then it basically disappeared from the headlines as fast as it appeared, basically is what it is there, because we haven't really heard shit about it since this whole thing came out now, which I think is very suspicious in general. However, what we have seen since then is you've had pieces of shit like Newsom try to push more gun control in California as if they don't already have like every fucking piece of gun control there could be, is what it is there. And they're still the #1 capital of America for various massacres, is what it is there. Specifically because of all the damn gun-free zones, is what it is. Then you had Virginia, the cheating fucking cunt there, Abigail Sprinbringer, tried to push an assault weapons ban thing there, is what it is. And it's rightfully being sued by the DOJ right now and a bunch of other people. I think I want to say Gunners of America and Fire and Policy Coalition are both suing her too, for that matter. And then you had, it was Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, who I'm pretty sure is also a voter fraud cheater, is what it is there. He signed in some Glock ban this week, and I want to say it was Ned Lamont in Virginia, or sorry, not Virginia, Vermont. Yeah, Ned Lamont of Vermont, I believe, or was it Rhode Island? I can't remember. It was either Rhode Island or Vermont. I forget which state it was, but either way, I believe it was Ned Lamont was the one that was the governor there. Tried to do some other bullshit kind of Glock ban too, for that matter. And it's like, it's all unconstitutional, bro. Like, do you people not understand how specific cases like Heller and Bruin work, where these things are common use? So stop trying to fucking ban them, dude. How about instead you actually ban the fucking criminals from your streets that are using these guns and putting the switches on them and committing felonies and doing so, and actually arrest these fucking cocksuckers out of society? How about you keep the career criminals locked the fuck up? You know, it's like something I saw earlier today, actually. And we're gonna talk about that one for a second now, of how fucking retarded the establishment is in this nation. Specifically people like your Kathy Hochul types, where in New York State now, you can commit 16 traffic violations in the same year and still have your license. Which I'm thinking to myself, like, how is that even possible? How is that even possible? You know? Like, you start to think about it, and you're just like, that is some crazy, crazy shit, man. That looks like my Amazon stuff might be heading down to me here in a minute or two. So, I got a new t-shirt coming now. Because I got a couple new t-shirts now because I found a thing the other day where I was looking around, and like one of the shirts that came up in the feed. Well, I was looking around, I was talking about crop dusting, and I'm like, hey, I wonder if they have my size. And then sure enough, they have one of my size. It wasn't the same listing, it was some other listing, but yeah, I decided to get the this professional crop duster shirt is what it was then. So, because it was just funny. But yeah, anyway, going back to the psychotic retardation of Democrats in this nation. So you had Kathy Hochul go on record here. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick. This should be, I think this is it, but I could be wrong. Should be pulling up here. Okay, I might need to reload the damn page. It's going to be stupid now for some reason. Probably need to clean off my computer, actually. I have a bunch of like malware and stuff is my guess. Because I haven't done that in a while. Okay, here we go. Yeah, dipshit Kathy Hochul, I want to point out, is a mass murdering genocidal maniac. She and Cuomo in 2020 when she was lieutenant governor, legitimately killed at least a couple million New Yorkers through various means, whether it be blowing out their lungs with various ventilators and stuff like that, or things like that. But yeah, it was New Yorkers with 16 or more speeding violations will now have to install devices in their cars to limit their driving speeds. The device will use GPS tracking to restrict how fast the car can drive to the posted speed limit. The device will be wired into the vehicle's onboard computer, which is interesting to me, right? Because it's like not all vehicles have an onboard computer, especially if you have an older vehicle. There's what it is. And it said if drivers refuse to install the device, their registrations will be revoked after 45 days. So my question is, and somebody pointed this out, who is their New York State is what it is. These people have openly committed at least 16 traffic violations in a single year. Why the fuck are they still walking free? Why aren't they in state prison right now is what it is. Why are their licenses not being suspended or revoked? You know, it's ridiculous, dude. It's absolute retarded bullshit is what it is, man. And it's these fucking people, I swear to God, like, they just don't give a fuck anymore is what it is, bro. Like, all they care about is how they can fuck you over. And then other people point out, like, fascism and stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, it's only fascism when we're the ones not doing it, basically. And it's like, that's exactly what it is, dude, bro. It's them trying to fuck your life over is what it is, honestly. So, looking at my Amazon GPS right now, looks like my driver is on the road next to mine, which would be that way. So I'm assuming they're gonna, or 2 stops away right now. So I would assume whenever they drop off this thing from this guy, they'll come back, zip through the side street there, then be on my street, and then come down to me and drop off my things. What it is then. Yeah. But yeah, I will say I'm pretty pissed off with FedEx this week too, for that matter, because I had ordered some parts from Duck Team Tactical recently, and I do appreciate them because they were able to get it out, and I'm telling me this time around, unlike the last time around, which I think was more or less due to the fact they had staffing shortages there because they had to get a bunch of new staff because they had to fire a bunch of people for various things or something as what it was there. But yeah, they got it to me in a couple weeks this time around then. And what's interesting is when you do the package protection thing there, as far as my understanding is, the package protection deal is an automatic sign on delivery kind of thing is what it is there, where they have to, like, you're supposed to, like, knock on your door and have you sign for it is what it is then. Not once, but twice now, I have had this stuff delivered to me, and they have not even knocked at all, let alone doing a signature requirement there is what it is. And it's like, if I had not been home, and the dude that used to live behind me still lived behind me, this dude might be stealing my shit, honestly, dude. Thank God he ain't there no more. But the point is, though, it's like, you know, God forbid I moved anyplace else and didn't realize shit was coming, and it was, like, supposed to be delivered there, and then I get back to the place and it's not there or whatever because somebody jacked it, you know? Like, why the hell are you not doing signature requirements on that stuff, dude? Especially when you're talking about, like, potentially $100 worth of things is what it is then. It's just ridiculous. This is what it is. But anyway. So, but yeah, I'm in the process right now of building out some AR pistols is what it is then. So hopefully it'll all be pretty fun when they're getting done. I'm probably going to make one a dedicated 22 is my guess. Just because it'd be interesting. Since I already have the bolt and everything like that, that's what it is for it. And then most likely I'll be building another AR at some point down the line because I got another upper from them coming now is what it is. And they're, what was I going to say? I got another upper coming from DTT, and I also got, all I have to do is basically buy it lower than Ford is what it would be then. So one thing I do wish I could find would be a lot more cheaper stocks is what it is then, because I noticed with a lot of these other companies, their stuff is not that cheap. Even the Amazon ones are like around $30-something a piece, and I'm just like, these should be like $10 stocks, bro. So, but yeah, it's just ridiculous as what it is. But yeah, like I said, with Uncle though, when you're talking about a 16 violation thing there, and it's like, bro, like these people had 15 fucking chances to not be a piece of shit, and yet you're letting them off again. Like it also, and what bothers me the most about New York City / New York State is what it is there. Is it's the same exact shit with these other things where you have these dudes that are doing bikers, like they're doing like these bike takeover things, whatever we're gonna call it there. And instead of them actually being, arrested and taken off the streets and stuff like that, instead what they will do as a stupid ass state there is they will confiscate their bikes, their vehicles, whatever it is there, and destroy all these bikes. And it's like, no, dude, you leave the bikes. If anything else, just sell the bikes to somebody else. You make money that way. And then you arrest these idiots off the fucking streets is what it is, and keep them locked up for their crimes. If they're going to be doing all kinds of criminal, reckless driving and stuff like that, then hit them with a bunch of criminal charges with it is then. Like, it ain't that hard, dog. So, yeah, I have a lot of problems with New York in general, is what it is there, dude. And just a lot of these Democrat-run states is what it is. Because they do the stupidest possible shit they could do, and then they wonder, like, why society is fucking aggravated up as it is right now. And from where I'm sitting, it's justified aggravation is what it is, dude, because you're doing, like, the dumbest shit possibly that you could be doing, and you're fucking over everybody is what it is there. I think this dude's still a little bit down from me. Either way, I'm going to call it a day, I think, here pretty soon. But yeah, needless to say, the California mosque shooting definitely feels like a false flag attack for sure. You've had a bunch of anti-gun scumbag happen then, since then. All these oathbreaker motherfuckers. You've openly had that piece of shit Justin Pearson now basically calling for Trump's assassination again, which I don't understand how this fucker's still in power or even walking free for that matter. After the shit he's pulled back in 2023 there in Tennessee, where he and Justin Jones should have been banned for life from ever holding office again in this country for that kind of crap. And they're trying to push a bunch of anti-gun stuff and use the preventable tragedy of the Covenant school shooting to make that crap happen as what it is there. So, anyway, I will be back hopefully tomorrow at some point with another Slicey Boy Saturday episode. I don't know exactly what we'll be doing this time around. I might just do like a fixed blade review or something like that for like 10 minutes or so. Other than that, I will be back most likely. I'll most likely do some kind of a grandstand at some point this week. I'm not exactly sure when yet or not. I'm also probably going to do like at least one review for various rifle optics is what it is then, because I got a couple different ones now that I want to talk about that are on the cheaper end. They're like under $25 a piece is what it is. So they're not bad. They're not the greatest either, but in general, they're not too bad at all. So, but anyway, need to go and see if my stuff is being dropped off then or not right now, because I thought I just heard somebody outside. So I'm going to go check that out and make sure I'm not having a package sitting out there for more than a couple minutes. So it is then. I mean, mostly everybody around is pretty cool, so I don't think they'll steal my shit or whatever, but like, I don't want to get mad for that matter in case somebody does try something. So I trust, obviously, the woman that lives behind me now and the people around here is what it is then. I just don't trust some of the people down further by the mailboxes there because I don't really know them people what it is there. So anyway, but it's been fun. It's been real. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. There's a lot of fuckery afoot in our country, and it really is time to just do a fresh reset. 250 years after our nation was born. So anyway, stay safe, stay vigilant, always be ready, especially for the 4th of July, just because there might be a giant Islam terror attack that day. I don't know if they'll do a super activation or not yet, but I wouldn't put it past them. So I would definitely be ready for that, obviously. Other than that, that's about it for the day. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see y'all on the next one. Peace out. Stay safe. Later, y'all.